Alright, ladies and gentlemen, today we're doing another tier maker tier list. This one, something very I care a lot about, alright? I'm ranking the starter Pokemon today. I need to get this out of the way first because I know tier maker videos and any videos where you put your opinion, people get really upset when you don't agree with their opinion. Listen to me, okay? Listen. This is just my opinion. You don't have to agree with me. This is just my opinion. This is purely based off of mainly looks, the design of a Pokemon, maybe if it's good in game, etc. My favorite does not have to be your favorite. It's okay. It's okay to disagree with people. It's not a big deal. Don't make it a big deal. Regardless, we're going to rank all these Pokemon today. These are just the final forms of all the starters. Not exactly all of them. There's some newer ones. It's a little outdated, but for the most part, it works. I'll add in the later ones. Don't worry about it. What really matters is the ranking. So it's just a usual tier list. S being the best, D being the worst. Let's just jump into it. All right, we're gonna start with the Gen 1 starters because you just gotta go. You gotta start at the beginning, right? I think everybody knows Charizard's an A tier Pokemon. You thought I was gonna put him S. You really thought, but I won't. Here's my reasoning for this. Yes, it's an incredibly good-looking Pokemon. Of the original three, it's the best one, I think. That being stated, it's not that great. It's a little overhyped. People like it a little too much. It falls off a lot. It's the fact that it has so many, like, 2 Mega forms and a Gigantamax form, and it's just so overdone at this point. It's not bad by any means. I still love the Pokemon. That's still why I put it at A. It's just not as good as some people make it out to be. That's all. It's still great. It's just not that great. In line with that, I did say it is the best Gen 1 Pokemon, but I do think Blastoise is pretty close in second place. I think Blastoise is also really cool. I think in an actual playthrough of a game, it's going to be a little bit more useful. In terms of like stats and being an actually pretty good Pokemon. It doesn't have tons of weaknesses like Charizard does, but design wise it's not as good. I mean, yeah, it's a water turtle. What did you expect? It's a turtle with some water cannons coming out of its back. Not too crazy of a design, all right, but it's still pretty cool. It's not the worst, but it's not the best. And I've said this before in different videos, but the next Pokemon, Venusaur, I haven't used it a lot, and that's for a good reason. I don't like the way Venusaur looks pretty much at all. I mean, it has some redeeming qualities. I'll say that. I do like the fact that through its evolution line, like the flower sprouts on Venusaur. But I mean, overall as a Pokemon, competitively, it's better than the other two from Gen 1. But it's still not good, in my opinion. I mean, I don't play Pokemon for competitive reasons. I play it for enjoyment reasons, and that's what the tier list is about. Enjoyment-wise, yes, in the actual, like, Kanto games, it will help you a lot in the first, like, 3 gyms. But after that, it's just, overall, grass type in general, I feel just doesn't have enough really, really good starter Pokemon. I think the grass starter Pokemon are the weakest of all of them, for sure. I don't even think it's close. And I think Venusaur really set this trend. I mean, obviously it was the first grass type starter, so it had to have started the trend, but it just started this trend of the grass starter not being very desirable, right? The Bulbasaur, cute, yeah, sure. Venusaur, pretty good competitively, and like it will be good on your team in the game, but it just doesn't look nearly as cool as the other two. And especially in a game like Pokemon, in the first generation, it was all about having cool looking Pokemon. And when you have the other two really cool looking starters and then you have Venusaur, it's kind of an easy choice at that point. Either way, we'll move on to Gen 2. I think by far the best Gen 2 starter is Feraligatr design wise. I think it's really cool. I mean, look at it. It's got the spikes. It looks like it's ready to fight. Like it's a crocodile. What more can you, excuse me, it's an alligator. But what more can you ask for? It looks the best. It's an alligator, pretty cool in real life already. It looks stronger than the other two. It actually does really well in the game. Like, you can't really ask for much more than that. It's just a really cool looking Pokemon, and overall my favorite of the Gen 2 starters. My least favorite of the Gen 2 starters, and probably one of my least favorite starters in general, is the Chikorita line, or Meganium. It has all the same issues that Bulbasaur and the Venusaur line in general has, where it just looks so much worse than the other two, but it leaves so much to be desired design-wise. It's just so lazy, in my opinion. The Chikorita line, if you think about it, Chikorita's neck just gets longer, it gets bigger, and then the leaf on its head turns into some antennas and then a flower necklace. Like, that's it. That's the whole Pokemon design, and it's just not good enough for a starter Pokemon. I mean, in comparison to all of the other starter Pokemon, it's just not good enough. Like, Meganium looks like more like a early game grass Pokemon that you would find like in a forest, more than it looks like a starter. I feel like the design for starters needs to be at a certain level, and Meganium's just not at that level in comparison to all the others. Next up, Typhlosion. It's B tier. It's an okay design. It falls very similarly into line with Meganium, where its design over the 3-stage evolution is pretty lazy. I mean, it just gets bigger, stands on its hind legs, and the fire on its back moves around. That's the whole Cyndaquil Typhlosion line. That the design doesn't really change much, and it's pretty lazy. But it's still a fire type starter, so it's still pretty cool. It'll still be pretty good in a game, because all fire types are pretty decent at the very least. It's okay. That's just about as okay as you can get for a starter. It's just okay. It doesn't have any super cool features, and it doesn't have any features that really make it awful, but it is just okay. Now we move on to my favorite generation for starters, at least, is Generation 3. My favorite starter, the fire type starter for Generation 3, Blaziken. I mean, it has to be an S tier Pokemon. It's the normie pick for people's favorite fire type, people's favorite starter, people's favorite Pokemon in general. There's a reason for that. It looks pretty cool. I mean, in my opinion, it doesn't really match up with the rest of its evolution line. I think it obviously went through a lot of design changes when they were making the game, but that's okay, because at the end of the day, it looks pretty cool. For what it is, a fire fighting type. It's probably the worst of the fire fighting type starters, if we're being honest, but it's still really cool. It's got a good design. It's pretty good in the games. It's just overall one of the better starters in my opinion. I don't really think most people would debate that. Yes, it's a normie answer. Yes, it's got its flaws, but overall, it's one of the better looking starters, and it's a lot of people's favorites for a reason. So the next Pokemon is actually the first Pokemon I ever used in Gen 3 playthrough, which was the Trico line, or Sceptile. Now, for that reason, I am a little biased, because it was what really made me fall in love with Gen 3 starters originally, because it was really, really cool. Ash also had one in the Pokemon anime, which made me like it even more. But I think Sceptile's design, in comparison to a lot of the other grass starters, is really good. I think it's probably, if not the coolest grass starter, probably like the second coolest one. It may not be the actual best Pokemon overall. It's just okay if you use it in the game, and it's just like mediocre competitively, if anything. But overall, I like it. That being said, it's still just okay. As I grow older, the more and more I kind of come to realize that I'm blinded by nostalgia a little bit, and Sceptile's just okay. But being okay is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just in line with Typhlosion. It's not the best Pokemon ever, but it's also, like, you're not going to be disappointed with it. It's good enough, basically. And the last Gen 3 starter, Swampert, is for sure S tier. I don't even think it comes close. I think Swampert in general is for sure the best starter that you can pick in Gen 3. The water ground type, it's an amazing type. The moves it learns are amazing. It's good in its game. It looks really cool. Later on, it gets a Mega Evolution, which makes it even better. Like, I don't think anybody will complain if you gave them a Mudkip or a Swampert. It's a good Pokemon. It looks cool. People like it for a reason again. Falling in line with Blaziken. People like it for a reason. It's a good Pokemon. It's not the best ever. I will rank it below Blaziken, at least design-wise. If we're talking actual, like, in-game use, I'd put it above. But just design-wise, I'd put it right below Blaziken. But it's still really cool in my opinion. I like it a lot. I love the Gen 3 starters personally. I think they're the best group of starters overall. But they make it work, and when they make it works really good. Next up, we got the Gen 4 starters. We're going to start with the grass one, Torterra. Torterra for me is basically this generation's Bulbasaur, and it basically has all of the issues that Venusaur has, except it's a teeny little bit better because of the typing and just the overall moves it gets. I think it's a little bit more useful personally, but that still doesn't make it good. The design, it's the same issue that Bulbasaur has. It basically just grows up a little bit and the tree on its back grows. Not to mention, we already had a turtle type starter in Blastoise, and now we have another one. It's just a little bit disappointing. It had so much potential. I think Turtwig is really, really cute. I think Grottle's one of the ugliest Pokemon I've ever seen. And Torterra is just okay. It had a lot of potential at the beginning, and it just kind of falls off at the end. You know, it like I said, it's good enough in the game. If you pick it, it's fine. But I think overall, the other Gen 4 starters are just significantly better. And the design of Torterra is just, it could have been so much better. It falls, I almost want to put it lower than Venusaur and Meganium, but I know deep down that I can't do that because it is better than those two. But it's still not good. Next up, Empoleon. It's got the same issues that Sceptile does. It's just okay. The typing of Water Steel's interesting, but not the greatest ever. The moves it learns isn't the best ever. Design, it's cool, but Piplup is so cute. It has the same issue that Turtwig does. It starts off so cute, and then they try to turn it into something like really badass, and in my opinion, they just missed the mark a little bit on this one, which makes it just an okay Pokemon. But in line of the Gen 4 starters, starting cute and ending up pretty badass is Infernape, and I gotta say, Infernape probably high end of A tier. That's the only Pokemon I think in Gen 4 that actually did it right. It starts really cute at Chimchar. Monferno, the middle evolution, it's pretty cool, but it's still kind of cute. It falls in line with its design, the monkey just getting bigger, yet adopting the fighting type at the end and looking like a fighting type fire Pokemon. It fits the bill. I think they did a great job with Infernape. I think it's a lot like Blaziken, where a lot of normies like it for good reason. It's a good designed Pokemon. In game, it's pretty good, especially in Gen 4, because you don't get a lot of fire types to begin with. So that's probably the best starter in the game for Gen 4. It's just overall really good. Okay, and the next up, we have the Gen 5 starters, and like we have been, we're going to start with the grass type. Servine, it's C tier. I mean, it does what it's supposed to. It's a grass snake. It evolves into a grass snake. It's good in the game for the most part, but it just has this general feeling of like being a little forgettable. I think this is actually a big problem with the Gen 5 starters in general, with at least two of them, is that they're just a little forgettable. The designs are decent, but they're just not up to par with a lot of the other starter design. I think they're okay, but they're just not great. And if they're not going to be great, it's hard to rationalize choosing them in the game, which is why I think a lot of people don't choose Snivy in the game. It's just at the best okay, but at the worst really, really bad, which makes it pretty bad overall, falling in line with all the other grass starters. And along with the theme of being a little bit forgettable, I think Samurott. Now, I do think Samurott is better than Empoleon overall. I think that the design that they went with of like a samurai water type, they did it pretty well. It's not the best ever. I think they could have done better if they were going for an actual samurai water type, especially because Oshawott and Duat already like stand on two legs like a normal samurai would, but for some reason in the final one they made it go with 4 legs. Don't really understand that design choice, which makes it fall a little bit for me. But overall, it's not awful. It's pretty good. It's decent enough in the game. The design itself falls in line with what you would want. It's pretty good, but it's just not as good as all the ones above it is the issue. It's not bad, it's just okay. And lastly, what I think is probably the best starter for Gen 5, Emboar, and to be honest, probably the best firefighting type that you could pick in an actual playthrough. I think it actually shines really, really well in its game. And I think the design is pretty good. I will say though, for being the best firefighting starter, it probably has the worst design of the firefighting starter. I think, however, it is pretty hard to go up against Infernape and Blaziken, which are basically like the two most normie picks of all the starters. Well, within the top 3 of like the normie picks for the best starter are Infernape and Blaziken. So when you're going up against that, yeah, it's going to be a little hard. Especially because, to be quite honest, Emboar, to me at least, doesn't really look like a firefighting type. It looks more like a fire dark type. I'm glad that it is what it is. I don't think they should have gone with it a 3rd time in a row. But Emboar is a pretty cool Pokemon. It's good, but I wouldn't rank it above any of the other 3 in front of it. Alright, and next up we have the Gen 6 starters, and we're going to start with the grass as always, but this one I have a pretty strong opinion about. Now, this evolution line, the Chespin evolution line, I think is actually, at this point in the series, probably the best design-wise grass starter. At least by the time it reaches its final evolution. I think the middle evolution, again, like the same problem I had with Grottle way back when, I think is incredibly ugly and a very bad design. But they do make up for it a lot at the end with this one's design. I still think it's at the low end of A tier, but I think it's better than all of these other grass starters. I think these 3 especially, and kind of the one in Meganium, I think they're pretty bad design-wise because you can just basically predict what they're going to look like at the end. You know, okay, it's going to get bigger, the thing on its back's going to grow, or it's going to be longer, or it's going to have a necklace around, like whatever it is for these grass types, you can kind of guess what it's going to be from the first 2 evolutions, and which takes away a lot of the joy that the final evolution brings, because it's when you know what's coming, it's a lot harder to enjoy it, basically is what I'm saying. However, the Chespin line does this pretty well, because you think you might know what's coming from the 1st and 2nd evolutions, but by the time you get to the 3rd, your expectations are actually pretty sharply subverted. I mean, if you were going in not knowing what they looked like, which I mean, any real fan of the Pokemon series probably already knows what all the starters look like going into the game. But from an outsider perspective, if you think about it that way, your expectations get subverted a lot, and it makes the starter a lot easier to enjoy. Not to mention, I think Chestnut is just overall a pretty good Pokemon in its game. So yeah, overall I think it's pretty good. Now we'll go with the fire type, and this one I have some harsh words for. Just like Meganium, I think it's really bad. I think at this point in the series they had done 3 firefighting types, so they knew they couldn't do something like that again. Even if people like the designs of those, the players of the games, like you have to switch it up a little. So they try to do something cool and go with like a fire psychic type, not a type you see a lot. A type that can look really cool in my opinion. If you think about how cool a lot of the fire type looks, a lot of the fire types look, and how cool a lot of the psychic types look, you would think that the combination would look really cool. But instead we get the Fennekin line. It's bad. Let's be honest, it's bad. I mean, I get what they were going for, like it being a witch and stuff, but it's just so poorly executed and forgettable that it makes it hard to like. In its game, it's decent enough as a starter. I mean, you're never going to find a starter that's really horrible to use in any of the games, but I mean, design-wise, it's just so disappointing. For having really, really good fire types as your starters for so many generations in a row, only to get to this is just incredibly disappointing as a fan of the series. I mean, it's just bad, man. It is. Even if this wasn't a starter, I think this is just a horrible Pokemon design. I think that they had a good vision, but they just really missed the mark on this one. Like the stick that it uses, like, come on, man, you just lit the stick on fire, so now it's a fire psychic type. Like, that's just so lazy in my opinion. And like it like the face of the final evolution is just Fennekin with some more hair coming out of the ears. It's just lazy, and that's a lot of the reason why I personally hate this. Of course there are people who like it. I mean, it was in Pokken Tournament and stuff, so like people like it for that reason, but I just think it's really bad. I don't like it at all. I think that they could have done so many cool things with the fire psychic type, and they just didn't, and it's really disappointing. And the last starter from this generation, Greninja, I'd put it probably between Infernape and Emboar. It's a really good design. In the Pokemon series, there aren't a ton of ninja type Pokemon, like Pokemon that are trying to be a ninja. But Greninja does it very well. It looks like what it is. It's a water type ninja, you know, like it does what it is supposed to, and it does it really well. Not to mention it has like the Ash Greninja form, which is even better, and I think is overall an even better design for the Pokemon, despite the fact that you can't really get it. But I mean, it does what it's supposed to really well. Not to mention it's good in its game, and it's overall like a good Pokemon, pretty good competitively even. It's just overall really good. I think this is like the bar for what a starter should look like is like these 4, 5 right here. They execute what they are supposed to be really well. They look really cool. The typings are unique. Well, as unique as you can be when you have 3 firefighting types. But the designs are really good, and they do what they're supposed to really well. And last up, the last generation for what they have on the list. I'll rank the 8th generation too, but 7th generation, they made an error and they have 2 on the tier list, but we'll just rank 1. Start with the grass type as always. This line, I actually think it's probably the best grass starter design. In fact, I would even rank it probably about there. I think it's better than all the other grass type starters by far. I mean, the first form of it, the Rowlet, is extremely cute. Everybody knows that. A lot of people love Rowlet. The middle evolution, yeah, I mean, it's alright. It's not the best ever, but you know, the middle evolutions can be hit or miss. But overall, I would say it's pretty good, and it's decent competitively again, pretty good in its game. I like this line. I think it's, like I said a lot, it's the best grass type starter for me, and I actually don't even really think it's that close. I think while these two are in the same tier, I think they are kind of a world apart in terms of actual designs. I think for once they tried something really cool. They tried to make a cool looking grass type starter, and they actually executed it pretty well. Not to mention like the aspect of it like being an archer and using this as like arrows and stuff. Like that's really cool, and it does what these Pokemon above it do better than these, where it has an idea going in and it executes that idea well. And I think that's overall what makes the best starters, is when they have a unique idea, they go for it and they hit it. And I think that's what this Pokemon does. So I think that's where I would rank it overall. Next up, the fire type Incineroar. I mean, I think I have to put it S tier. The design is really cool. It's another one of the Pokemon that does what it's supposed to really well. It is a wrestling fire type. It looks like a wrestler, you know? Not to mention the typing itself being dark fire, really good. It's something that people wanted for a long time in their fire starters, since we had 3 firefighting in a row. You know, we wanted something like this where it was something more unique, but still looked really cool. And I think they executed it well, especially coming off the back of the last gen's fire starter being as bad as it was. The bar was pretty low for it, and I think it exceeded pretty much all expectations. Not to mention, I think Torracat and Litten's designs are also really, really, really incredible. I don't think anyone will really argue with the fact that Incineroar is a very good designed Pokemon. It may not be the best Pokemon ever, but like its design is really good. Not to mention, it's also like one of the Pokemon in like Smash Brothers and stuff. Like that's one of those high honors that not a lot of Pokemon get for a reason. It does what it's supposed to really well, and that's why a lot of people like it, and it works really well. Now, next up is what I consider probably the best overall starter. I'm actually going to rank like that. But what I think is actually the best starter in game is probably Primarina. I think in its game, Primarina's kind of insane, and if you pick one of the other 2 starters in that game, you're really putting yourself at a disadvantage for not a whole lot of reason. It's just really good for the region for whatever design reasons that may be. It's really good. Not to mention, it executes on its design really well. Like, it starts as Popplio, and it looks decent, it's cute, and you can kind of tell what it's going for. It's going to be that. It's got like that sea lion kind of vibe going on again, and they executed at the end really well by turning it into more like a mermaid, giving it that fairy type, which gives it a cool typing of water fairy. Overall, I think it's just really cool, and I think it's probably the best water type starter, if I'm being honest. Although I think the difference between like these top 4 here is very minuscule. I think they're all amazing, and I think really any day of the week, any one of these 4 at the top can beat one of the other 4 at the top. It just kind of depends on how you're feeling, what types you're going for, and that kind of thing. But I still think Primarina was executed really well, does what it's supposed to, and that's the bar I have for starters, so that's where I would rank it. Now, as for the Generation 8 Pokemon, we're just going to pretend like these guys right here are them, because I can't add them in. But if we're going with this will be our Grookey. I think, again, just like Dartrix, Grookey is one of the better type grass starters. I think its design's really cool, and when it eventually gets to Rillaboom, I think the design is executed really, really well. Not to mention its Gigantamax form being really good, like competitively and in the game. If I had to rank Grookey, I'd say probably right above Dartrix as my new favorite grass type starter. Not my favorite ever, but I think it's really good. I might even put it above. Yeah, I'll put it above Emboar. I think Grookey, quote unquote, because this is obviously not him, but that evolution line at Rillaboom, I think is a really good design. I think they do it really well. The Pokemon itself's really good as a Pokemon. I like it a lot. Next up, we have the Scorbunny evolution line, the Cinderace. I don't know how you say it exactly. But that one, now going into Generation 8 Sword and Shield, I actually expected this one to be my favorite. And in fact, I was really surprised because the grass type, which as you can tell by my tier list, I usually don't like that much, ended up being my favorite. But I had high expectations for Scorbunny going in. Now, those expectations weren't really met. But, however, that being said, I don't hate the evolution line. I don't think it's the best, but for me, it falls into the same trap that like Typhlosion does, of just being okay. Now, again, the Gigantamax form of it actually helps it out a lot. It becomes pretty good, like competitively and in the game, but it's still just okay, design-wise, in my opinion. I mean, you knew what it was going to be. It was a bunny that played soccer, and at the end, it was a bunny that played soccer still. So, I mean, I guess my expectations shouldn't have been too high for it because it did end at what it basically should have been. But I think at the end of the day, it was just okay. And the last Pokemon for the tier list today, the last Generation 8 starter, Sobble. Listen, it was another one of those Pokemon going into Generation 8 that I had a lot of expectations for and I thought could be really, really cool, and it ended up being just okay. I think I'd even rank it below like Sceptile. I think by the end, when it's an Inteleon, it's just okay. I think it tried to be too much like what Greninja already is. Like a cool looking, slim water type instead of the usual big, bulky water types. And it just wasn't necessary. We already have Greninja, who's already really cool, and it just doesn't hit the mark quite as hard as Greninja does. It's still an okay design, but it's just not as cool as what it could have been. Either way, guys, that's it. That's my final ranking of the starters. I know it's a little bit scuffed because there has no Gen 8 and I had to reuse the Gen 7 ones, but that's alright. Either way, you get the point. I think overall, in general, starter type Pokemon are better designed than a lot of the ones throughout the game. They have to be. They're probably going to be a staple on your team for your whole playthrough of the game. So in general, I think all of these designs are on the higher end of the series. Most of them. Maybe not these guys. But for the most part, they're all pretty good. And even though I was harsh on some, I don't really hate any, except these two. I do hate these two, let that be known. But I don't really hate any of the other ones. I think they're all pretty good. I like most of them, but that's my ranking of them. If you agree, disagree, let me know down in the comments. Don't turn it into a fight though. This is just my opinion. You don't have to agree. I know I said it a lot in the beginning, but it's true. You really don't have to. Either way, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you're new around here, hit the subscribe button, turn on the notifications. Like the video if you liked it. Leave me a comment down below telling me how you feel about my opinion and leaving yours down below there as well. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching. Peace.